everybody. This is Liz from Augusta, and today I'm with Nick Snedden, and we are super excited to have him, and we'd love to hear about his experience with Augusta. And I would love for you to tell us who you are and where you're from and where your location is.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Snedden. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, which is the capital of Canada. I started with Augusta. I think this will be our fourth year going in now. It's been awesome so far.
What number of franchise are you?
I I might be mistaken, but I think I was like 12th or something like that.
You're still number 12.
Okay. Was it that?
I'm not sure exactly, but
Okay.
I know that you're the very first Canadian for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So can you tell us about when you first heard of Augusta and then what brought you to be a franchisee?
Yeah. So I'm sure most of the franchisees that was seeing Mike's videos on YouTube. And so what really piqued my interest with Mike was that differentiated him from other YouTubers was really that he would talk more about the business side of things, less just like the equipment and all that. And it was right before, I think it was the first conference he had, which was going to be very specifically about P4P. So actually before attending conference, I was messaging Mike on Facebook, kind of just asking him questions and asking him if based on where I am revenue wise, like if it would make sense for me to pay to go out to this conference. And so he convinced me to go. And that was right when he started franchising Augusta. So like, to be completely honest, I was like, do not get talked into buying a franchise. Like, you're just going to learn about P4P. And so the rest is history.
So how old were you then?
So I'm 23 now. I guess I was 20 years old.
Yes. And I remember that conference and I remember him telling me a little bit about you. And then I didn't know it was you. So the conference came and there was this guy sitting in the front, this young guy, and he was locked in. Like he reminded me so much of Mike. And this young guy was in tune to everything Mike was saying. And so then I know that afterwards we were going to have just a little dinner and it was going to be a little bit to talk about the franchise. Now we were new to franchising. And so Mike had told me, he's like, if 10 people even care enough to sign up and have this kind of confidence in me, he goes, I think I might cry. And he's not a crier and he's not an emotional person. So we were just going to present it. Well, after the conference, we had this dinner and you came and you were locked into that whole thing. And then we find out you're from Canada and we've just started this thing and we have no idea how to start the franchise in Canada.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
And so after that meeting, it was basically like we turned you away for a minute.
Yeah, for a little bit. It was pretty quick where Mike ended up coming back and saying like, okay, we could make, he talked to the lawyers and he was able to make it work.
Yeah, we left that night and I think that was a Saturday night maybe. And then Monday, he was already on the phone with the lawyers asking them what we had to do to get into Canada.
Yeah.
So you had a lawn care and landscaping and a snow business before you even heard of Mike, right?
So not snow. My first year doing snow was the first year with Augusta, but it was pretty much just one man show, mowing lawns. Like I wouldn't even say landscaping, like very minor landscaping stuff, but I was very small. Probably like I wouldn't even call it full time myself before joining Augusta. It was just, I was in high school. I just didn't want to work a regular job, and I was working like half the amount of time as my friends, making more money. So, I was fine with that. And I always knew I always had the business mind. So I wanted to grow it to something bigger than that. So that's what led me to go to conference and eventually join Augusta.
So how old were you when you first started your business?
So I was 16. That was the first summer.
And were your parents supportive of this?
They were definitely supportive, but it was very low cost starting. My grandfather gave me his push mower. I got a trimmer from Home Depot, and I would just walk it down the street. No truck, just walk to the customers. I remember back then it was a big deal if I mowed 3 lawns in one day because it was so exhausting walking from
no
house
kidding.
to house. Yeah, so that's how it started.
And so your parents had no clue it was going to go like this. And did you have visions of it going this way as well?
Um, yeah, I definitely had visions of, growing it bigger. I didn't know necessarily have a time frame of how quickly I think it would go. Both my parents work for themselves, so I got a bit of that entrepreneurial bug from them. But yeah, I don't think they, just like me, like they probably thought it was just gonna be a summer job for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
back
Were they
then. Yeah.
expecting that you go to college?
So I actually did go to college for one semester. And then I was just like, yeah, this isn't it. So that was actually the year before joining Augusta. So I went for one semester in marketing and just like, well, it wasn't my thing.
So when we made it possible for you to join, what was the cost to enter at that time?
So I think the initial franchise fee was 9,000 for me,
Mm-hmm.
which was, part of it was a no-brainer. And what was fantastic that you guys did and are still doing is like matching it at Canadian dollars. And I remember asking Mike, like, okay, so it'll, like, I was about to send the money in USD or something, and he was like, oh, no, no, don't worry. I was like, are you sure? It's like 30% difference, But so that was awesome that you guys do that and continue to do that.
So the franchisees that came in at the beginning were really taking a risk on us, on Mike. And how was it that you could put your confidence in somebody as young as yourself and with the little experience, life experience? Was it, you mentioned specifically that it was the depth that he gave to you and the knowledge. So there no one else out there, maybe older, more experienced, that was not just giving lawn mowing videos and how-to videos, but actually the
Mhm.
depth of business that you could find?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, probably like on the internet, the closest would have been Jonathan Potoshnik from Lawn Care Millionaire in terms of just advice from YouTube videos. But yeah, honestly, like one of the main reasons that I pulled the trigger and decided to join Augusta was really, um, yeah, the direct advice that I would get from Mike, and just like, when there was fewer franchisees, we had like, there was much more one-on-one with Mike, and it was like I didn't necessarily have anyone in my life or someone that I knew, whether it be in the lawn care industry, to kind of guide me, or how, and show me how to scale a business. So it was really buying into Mike and following his vision, and how I saw he could help me. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Not to belabor the point about parents, but I know this would speak to a lot of young guys out there. Did your parents have to start listening themselves to really support what you were doing?
I was lucky in that they always supported me. I I would say, like, yeah, so both my parents are self-employed, but I wouldn't say like they don't have the wealth of business knowledge that Mike has. So I couldn't necessarily go to them for very specific guidance, but in terms of support, they've always been great and kind of trusted me and let me follow what I think was best.
So I would say people like you and Mike that have the support of parents that don't really put any parameters on your growth, you two have
Yeah.
been very successful in that regard.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a big factor, and I could only imagine how much of a hurdle it would be if you didn't have that support.
Yes. So what was the actual final little straw that helped you commit? Was it because we could do it in Canada? Were you already convinced, or what was the thing?
Hmm. Um, I don't remember what the exact final straw was, but I do remember. So, like I mentioned, I went into the conference like saying, "Do not like, don't get talked into to buying a franchise," and just seeing like Mike's energy, and just like I'd been watching him on YouTube for, like, let's say a year or so, and just like see him in person and having a lot of one-on-one, I could just really see that he was someone really special, and I just left there like looking up to him and already see him as a mentor, and I just, yeah, it was a no-brainer from there.
Fantastic. So
Mhm.
in these several years that you've been with us, how much have you grown?
A lot, both business wise and personally. Actually, I'd almost completely forgotten about this, but in terms of the personal side of things, I remember when I first joined Augusta, before even going out to training, I'd send Mike an email saying, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm not going to come out to training. And I don't even really remember my exact thought process then. I guess I just, had a lot of stress or just no self-confidence. And so Mike talked me into it. And there have been like several occasions where I wanted to quit. And I really owe it to Mike a lot that, I'm still here going. But yeah, so personally have grown a lot just with Mike and having the community as a whole. Business wise, yeah, like I said, before joining Augusta, it was just myself, not even like fully booked out. This summer we had like 8 employees. We
Wow.
did about 700,000 in revenue this year. So it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, so that one statement entails a lot, and the personal
Mhm.
side, and I'll get over to the personal side in a little bit. But the business side, to grow like that, when you first
Yeah.
started Augusta, where do you even begin? Did you buy more trucks right away? Did you go into large landscape projects, or how were you
Mhm.
guided to make the start?
Right. So to get to what we did this year, so it would have been like a 3-year process from joining Augusta. So really that first year, I hired one employee. So it was me and that one employee. And it was just with one truck, and then started getting into a bit more projects just to book out the schedule and
Mm-hmm.
allow me to get the second truck, get the second employee, so I could kind of leave them on the jobs and go do estimates
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So that was the first year, and then starting to implement the Augusta systems, which really started to make it feel like a real business. And then it was kind of just gradual from there. So the second year, I think we had three trucks, 4 employees. Started going to a little bit bigger projects that second year, which helped the revenue. I believe at that point we did $400,000 that year. And then this past year, we really went into bigger projects, which some of them we got a bit in over our head on some big projects. So we're reeling back a bit on that this year. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just to get that revenue and to build that team, you
Mm-hmm.
just you need to get that work to keep your guys booked out. And we learned our lessons, and we're gonna go about it a bit differently this year.
Yeah, so I think your passion is projects, right?
I wouldn't even say passion necessarily, just like I like to see the big numbers.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, I like to see the big numbers coming in quick, I guess, where we learned our lessons that the recurring and maintenance and simple services, which we're still going to do some projects this year, but last year we had the big issue was I was trying to, so we had 2 projects at once. I train all of our guys were new at landscaping. I tried to train them all in 1 week. Okay, and now you guys are good to to go off and do your projects. And I had some guys that were pretty good that came back from the previous years, but this year what we're doing differently is I just have my one really good guy, one project crew, and like he's just keep it simple and then really focus on growing, mowing, maintenance, small projects, and that side of
Mm-hmm.
things.
So you had shiny object syndrome
Yeah.
like we did too for a while. And then there's
Yeah.
usually a specific project or something happens that you get the revelation that this
Mm-hmm.
is not the best way to go. So for you, did you
Yeah.
have all these big projects and you're trying to bounce around to them and trying to do estimates? Was that the big challenge, or was it that you did not have enough bread and butter, which would be the recurring mows, to sustain you while you did that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was pretty much just a professional firefighter for this
Yes.
entire year, honestly. It was so we get like lots of snow here in the winter. So we do zero landscaping work in the winter other than snow removal. So between the storms, I have a lot of time to just sit at home and think.
Yes.
So I was watching all these videos on how to do the big projects, the hardscapes. I'm like, oh, easy. Like we can do it, no problem. And the thing with a lot of these big projects is you bid them in the winter, or like right before spring. So I priced all these huge jobs that in theory I knew how to do. In theory, I thought I priced them well. So it was a double whammy of underpriced jobs that we also weren't near efficient enough to complete them properly. So it was that was a big thing. And then we had our mowing crews going, so I'd have to, if the equipment broke down or whatnot, I had to go deal with that. And then so I had me, my right hand man Andrew.
Yes.
So on those big projects, the regular crew was working during the day. They still put in long days, but then I would show up at 5 p.m. and me and Andrew would do the 5 to 8 p.m. Just
Yep.
finish it. So it was, and the weekends, like it was, yeah, there was a 2 month span there where it was pretty wild.
I remember that. So when we
Yeah.
got to snow services, how many
Mhm.
years in were you before you decided to go into snow?
So this is our third year doing snow. So my first year with Augusta was the first year doing snow.
Yes, I remember texting you. I think it was the middle of the night. We were running snow routes, and I remember texting you and said, "Hey, take a video of you out there so I can
Mhm.
post something of you." And you were working day and night. We were working day and night doing snow
Mhm.
routes. And what was crazy is that I knew you were working 24/7 like us. And that does take a toll on you after a while. And we actually stopped snow because of the
Mhm.
pressure that it was on the guys to extend themselves like that. So were
Yeah.
you running a crew in the day, and then were you able to switch it up at night, or were you same guys just sleeping for a few hours and going again?
Yeah, so it's here by the time we're doing snow, like we're not doing anything else. Because if it's snow is here, like it's a foot of snow and it's staying on the ground for for the whole winter. So it's like landscaping stops and snow starts. Um, but yeah, snow is a whole different beast here. Like we're probably us in Montreal nearby, we're probably the biggest snow removal markets in the world. If you drive down the streets, everyone has their markers, and every single house has a snow removal
Wow.
provider. So and there's a very specific way that people do snow removal here. So it's a whole different beast to tackle here. But it's, to be honest, I kind of like, I like the rush and the adrenaline that comes with snow removal. And you're up all night for a couple days, but then you
Yep.
get the week to recover. So it's a nice change up from the day-to-day of the summer and spring work. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a blessing and a curse, the the
Mm-hmm.
snow removal side of things here.
If the competition is that much, how do you
Mhm.
differentiate yourself for the snow removal? Is it because you
Mhm.
are Augusta and you're a big company that they can rely on? Is it your speed of response? What
Mhm.
is it that sets you apart?
Yeah, so there's probably like 5 or 6 major players in the city. So there are those big companies that
Mm-hmm.
have that trust and that have been around for 30 years. So what allowed me to really break into the snow removal side of things is, so I started in the neighborhood where I grew up, and I was just super lucky where none of the big guys were in there when I started, but now they are. So I got in like in the perfect time. But for snow removal, a huge thing is communication. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, them being able to call command center during the day, and we have a software for snow that sends out notifications when we're about to be there. So that's a really big thing. And snow is one of those things where if you just, everyone's markers at the end of the driveway, so all the neighbors know who has who. So if you get good service, you can grow really fast because of that.
I love it. I love it. So if we
Mhm.
could turn a little bit to the personal side, number one, you're super young with a lot of pressure on you, and now you not only have the self pressure, but you have the pressure of all these people to take care of. But
Mhm.
before you had the people, entrepreneurs, they have self doubt. They still push through the self doubt. They do put a lot of pressure on themselves, and to have support and somebody believe in you, I think was what really helped you and propelled you in the beginning. And
Mhm.
you had you were starting, you were with Augusta, and then you were even supposed to come for training and having so much
Yeah.
self-doubt. And I remember Mike saying that young guy that was at conference, he's feeling a lot of anxiety even about coming and locking in. And Mike was just, I
Yeah.
just need him to come, I just need him to get here. And just
Yeah.
us feeling what you were feeling, it actually gave me the chills a little bit ago when you were talking about it, because it's such a warfare in your
Mhm.
mind.
Yeah.
And was it because somebody believed in you like that that got you here, or would you have
Mhm.
just given up at that point?
Yeah. So there's that. There's like three very like specific times where I would have quit if it wasn't for Mike and Augusta as a whole. So yeah, just like if I was going at it alone, you know, of course you have family to reach out to when you're having a tough time and stuff, but they don't know specifically what's going on and like very specifically the challenges you're going through. Like, you know, I remember talking to my parents about it, and all they see is how hard of a time you're having and how hard it
Yes.
is. So they're like, oh, you know, maybe it is a good decision to not continue because it's so hard. Where, you know, when you have someone like you guys to go to, where you've seen people that have made it to the other side,
Mhm.
you know, maybe, you know, there's that image you'll see of the people chipping away at the diamonds, and the guy turns around
Yep.
right before he's at the diamond. So you need people that have that perspective, and that was definitely what pulled me through with you guys.
And what I've seen happen before is guys that are like type A, they're very driven, they're very visionary, and they know
Mhm.
they can do it because they've performed before. And
Mhm.
then I see them just exhausted, really, and the burden of command, and then the pressure
Yeah.
from all the customers and the jobs. And then what happens, I've seen, is they really distance themselves. And so there's times I would hear from command, hey, we haven't heard from Nick. He's not responding to us. And I
Yeah.
would be, okay, something's up. And then I'm
Yeah.
immediately like, hey, are you still sucking air? Just sending you
Yeah.
messages. And are you
Yeah.
okay? And I think what you've gone through, and I remember even Nick Reed having that specific time that he talks about. And he said it's so debilitating that he
Yeah.
withdrew and he went into a place where he said it was, 2 or 3 months where
Yeah.
he just could barely function, barely get out of bed. And I just would love for you to share when a person is in that place, what would you encourage them to do before they sink so low that they won't
Mhm.
they won't even reach out to anybody? Not even just
Mhm.
shame, but you're just so low.
Yeah. Um, so sometimes I like to call this like the curse of ambition.
Yes.
And I think a big thing with me at the start was I'm putting like so much into this. You're working so hard. You're in the field. You're physically exhausted, and then you come home, read the emails, and you know there's a complaint from a client, and it's just the stacking of all that will beat you down. And for me, I think a big part of it was you're putting all this work and you're seemingly like at the same place that you were last year or at the
Yep.
beginning of the season, and you're just not seeing the results as fast as you'd like to see it. So I would say just trust the process. And if you need, like, if you don't answer your emails for one day, you're not going to lose all your clients.
Exactly.
Like, you know, even if it's the right thing, you know, it's the right thing to do to give an amazing service, you know, answer super quick, but it's just, if it's what you need to do, it's what you need to do to a certain point. But yeah, I'd say it's identify if you're going to be going into a place like that, and
Mhm.
take a breather and just trust the process.
How hard is it when you've built the business and it's your baby and you've poured so much into it? How hard is it to give up control? And what's the mental process to hand over something to somebody else to know that
Mhm.
if they can just take a little bit off your plate, you won't sink down to that dark place so
Yeah.
fast?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big, like to this day, it's a huge issue I have, whether it be giving to Command or giving to like Andrew, some of our employees. Um, yeah, you always have this thought in your mind that no one can do it as good as you, or it's not going to be 100% perfect. But you know, even if it's 90% or 80%, like it's just let someone get it done and let the wheels keep turning,
Yeah,
and it'll take, yeah.
I remember the day then I was basically begging you to let us take your emails,
Yeah.
and there was like 11,000 in there. And so to to you it's like, oh no, no, like I can't give this up. And to me it's like I have the rush of excitement of
Right.
taking on a project like that and sorting them out and promising you that I won't delete a single thing.
Yeah.
And I know that that's so hard, but when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, there's only so many questions a customer is going to ask. I mean,
Mhm.
this is lawn care. This is not the military where people are like bleeding out on the battlefield. really. I mean,
Right.
there's only a certain amount of questions that's going to come up and issues with customers. And so I know
Mhm.
it's very, very hard for you guys to trust. And because we're humans and we're still at the
Yeah.
beginning of this thing, you take a real risk, and we understand that, to hand over anything. And so even in our relationships with you and Command, it's taken a while because we did make mistakes in the beginning. It's hard for you to hand over the reins even as we go along. But do you think that'll be easier for other franchisees as the systems get tightened up, the new ones that
Mhm.
come along?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And kind of going back to one of the first questions you had, another major, I guess, like tangible business reason for joining Augusta was command center and not having to answer the phones, and that just takes so much weight off you. Um, but yeah, moving forward for anyone that's for any of the new franchisees, I would just as soon as possible delegate as much as possible to command center, so you don't get in the habit of thinking it's part of your role to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and focus on what's important for to actually move the needle in your business.
Do you think it's a little bit of a handicap when somebody's already run their business for several years as opposed to somebody that's coming in from the ground up as a franchisee?
Mhm. Yeah, most likely. Because even me before joining Augusta, I wouldn't even consider it that much of a full blown business.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a kid
Yeah.
mowing lawns. So I'm kind of a mix of both there. Um, but yeah, I could see it's if you have your daily habits or the patterns of how you manage things. I'm sure it can be hard to let that go, but like I'm not sure how many total franchisees we're at now, but over 100, I think.
Yeah,
And
120.
yeah, 120. So there's a lot of data points that you guys are collecting there on how to do things properly, so most likely you'd be in a better place just handing it off.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So what are your goals this upcoming year and your long-term vision for your company?
Mhm. Yeah, so this upcoming year, I really want to break 1 million in revenue, and not doing that by just taking huge projects, by
Yes.
doing what we want to do. Really nailing in the systems, getting more organized. And in the future, so my 10-year goal is to have 5 locations in Ottawa here, run by GMs. And then my big picture goal is I want 100 locations across Canada.
Fantastic. So you're going to take over the place.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love it. So how have you been grooming an employee to take the position of a GM? Are you shooting to get out of the field on this one first?
Yeah, yeah. So this year, our plan is to pretty much have Andrew take over this location as a GM. There's a bit of logistical issues we have to figure out with actually starting a second location this
Mm-hmm.
year, but we're gonna run this year, preparing to open a second location next year, and to have Andrew all set to go, to run this main location, which will most likely always be our bread and butter,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the snow removal side of things. And we have a couple guys that we're going to start grooming to be GM for the second location next year that have been with us for a couple of years. So, with the open book management, the P for P, that helps a lot with the guys seeing the back end of things, so they know what goes into running the business.
For sure.
And yeah, so I don't, this is just a new thing that I'm trying to think of, like training up GMs. So I don't actually have any experience like grooming guys to be GMs, but those guys that we have in mind, just um, you know, reaching out to them a bit more and telling them like in like to come ask us whatever questions they have, and just really going a bit more in depth with them about how
Mm-hmm.
how we do things.
Are you trying to get them to listen to the content to really buy in and
Mhm.
understand, to think more like an owner?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's a
So
big
your
thing.
goal is basically to replicate yourself at one and then you go start the other one from scratch?
Yeah, so that's something I was talking with Leah on our last coaching call as well. Either that, so either I'll start the second location, or right away just have a GM start that second location. It's just normally you would, what Lee was telling me is you just got to expect a little bit less revenue that first year if you're not starting, and if you're training a GM at the same time. So I would like to have a GM almost right away in the second location, and then I could still focus on just fine tuning the locations and already planning on starting others.
So, so to move on, so we have enough time to just finish all the questions that we have for you. So if you were starting all over again, what would you change?
Definitely follow the systems closer right off the bat. Don't have shiny object syndrome,
Yes.
whether it's with projects or even like some people's version of shiny object syndrome will be, let's say you profit $100,000 in your business and you just right away go put it into real estate, or right away go put into something else. Mike talks a lot about how really, if you look at the numbers, there's no better investment than just putting it back into your business. So keep personal expenses as low as you can and just really feed the beast, which is what I have been doing for sure. So the main thing I would do differently is for myself is shiny objects with projects and just sticking with the systems right away and trusting the process.
So would you recommend that people start with mowing only and then build it from there?
So if you're starting from scratch, you're gonna need to do a little bit of projects, and they could be very simple, just to book out your schedule and get the revenue coming. Because it's hard to right away in the spring have a full mowing route booked out, and it's always kind of the balance as you hire employees. You're always gonna have to have some one-time work just to book out the guys or have that revenue come in until you have all the reoccurring services. So yeah, if someone that's in your area is selling their old mowing route and you can be booked out right away, maybe that could be a good idea to get that right away. But starting from scratch, it can be a little bit tough just starting with mowing.
Have you done an acquisition yet? Have you purchased another company?
No, I haven't, but I do want to. I'm just looking for, and that's a big thing too this year that I'm trying to be much better on is tracking our numbers. I want to
Yes.
know very specifically what my cost per acquisition is so that I know if it's a smart idea to buy someone's list versus just putting my own money into marketing.
Right. Smart. So you said you started your business at 16, and how old were you when you joined Augusta?
20 or maybe 19 or 20.
Okay. And to accomplish this much, this fast, and to become the person that you've become with all the personal growth, what are the things that you feed on or you put into yourself? Podcasts, any kind of audible books, and could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So definitely all of Mike's stuff. I listen to, I'm borderline addicted to podcasts. So I'm in the truck. It's just always something playing. There's there's the typical books like the E-Myth. What's not like Traction is one that I recently read. That's really, it's like
Yes.
sometimes I read a lot of books and a lot of them are, even the common ones that you hear about, it's just like very fluffy, and like you'll learn
Yes.
more from that podcast listening to the author on a podcast doing his circuit, like pitching his
100%.
book. So like I'm not the type where I can learn a lot just from reading, but Traction is 100% like, it's almost like a school textbook. Like it's in detail, it tells you things to do. So
For
Traction
sure.
is great. Podcasts. These guys are actually based out of Canada, but they're called Contractor Evolution with the Breakthrough Academy. It's like excellent podcast for all home service businesses. So yeah, it's just constantly learning, but be careful not to overdo it. Sometimes I overdo it. It's just too much incoming. Then you don't remember
Yes.
what you're learning. You don't end up implementing anything. But yeah, I kind of have a rule that I follow, that someone out there has the answer. Like you're not gonna come up with the answer just writing on a whiteboard, like
That's so
figuring out
good.
yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how about a quote? I know that you ingest a lot of content like I do, and
Yeah.
there's no way to pick something specific, but do you have one or a couple that are really beneficial to you?
Yeah. One, there's always, like I said, because I've taken so much stuff, I'm always like, oh yeah, that's a
Right.
good quote. That's a good quote.
Yeah.
But one that's been with me since I was super young, and when I first got the entrepreneurial bug is, and this is really how I live my life, is live like they won't to live like they can't.
Yes.
So me being young now, like even some of my friends or people I grew up with, they're, 20s is your time to just enjoy, party, whatever, worry about things later. Where the way I see it is, no, I'm gonna work now, get my stuff together now, so that when I'm 30, 35, now, I have my stuff together. So that's kind of like a leading quote that I like to live by.
Well, a couple things I want to thank you for. And the first one is for believing in Mike and then believing in Augusta and taking the risk to be one of the people at the bottom with us. So just like Google or Amazon, when they were working 24/7 and they're sleeping under their desk and they were trying things and breaking them, it takes a certain caliber of people to say, I believe in you and I know we're going to mess up, but we're going to build something great together. And so I thank you for being a part of that. And another thing I'd like to acknowledge you for is there's all these different sections of what you've gone through and times when you wanted to give up. And I want to say thank you for reaching out to get help that you needed. And I might get emotional because I know what you've experienced. To thank you for some people don't ever reach out for help and they give up, but then there's other people who care so much about other people that for the benefit of people who love them and the benefit of the difference they think they can make in the world, they do reach out and get help. And I want to thank you for not giving up. And if we do give up, we're going to hurt a lot of people. And so I appreciate all that you've gone through. And I know that you're going to have an impact in ways that you never will even know about. For Augusta and the young guys, not only the young guys, but the married guys with families that have those deep struggles too. And now they have the responsibility of the family and their wife and their kids and all their relationships on top of that. But just hearing your story, and I hope that they do reach out to you and reach out to you for help, and that to know that even when you experience this again, because it comes in waves kind of in life. When you experience this again, that you've put stuff in place to protect yourself, and also for them to tell them to like, please don't back away when you're not doing good. Please reach out to command and just throw stuff at command, even though it might not be perfect. But there's people there. Like I was even thinking this week, there's a whole nation behind me. And now I know how a franchisee feels that, yeah, we're going to mess up, but now I've got my arms linked with these other people. And I appreciate the giving out that you do on Facebook and answering questions. And is there anything else that you'd want to share with the franchisees and young guys starting out?
I guess one thing I would say for if you're a young guy starting out, if you're in a similar position that I was in, is to not try to go at it alone, whether it is joining Augusta or finding some, even like a major thing for me is I have pretty great relationships with some of our competitors now, not necessarily at the start, but now. And I've, just build a community around yourself, because that's, sometimes it can get really tough. It can get tough dealing with your employees and get tough dealing with customers. But personally, one of my favorite things about being in this industry is the other franchisees and just other people in the industry in our local city. So it's don't go at it alone. If you feel like you're lacking structure or like vision where you want to go, then definitely consider joining Augusta.
Thank you. So I appreciate your time today, and thank you and good luck in everything that you do.
All right. Thanks a lot, Liz. I appreciate it.